Greetings. This is Angela Blueskies, and I am so delighted to bring you another amazing person in our conversations in the Two Hands and a Heart project. And today I am just so excited to introduce you to my beautiful sister, Carolynne Melnyk. She calls herself a modern day gypsy, and she lives in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. She is a teacher, a healing arts practitioner, a traveler, a writer, and a dear friend that I met in my travels in South America. Carolynne, thank you so much for joining me in conversation today.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, Angela. It's such a privilege to be here with you and to be connecting with you again. It's just a thrill. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, it's such a pleasure. It's just so wonderful to be together with you after so long. It's been a really long time now since we were last together in Peru.
I agree.
Over 10 years now, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because I've been back in Canada for 10 years this year. Yeah.
So as I was contemplating the direction of our conversation today, I was actually quite challenged to find a starting point, as you lead such an interesting life and there's so many ways that we could go. But I think I'd like to begin by going back in time to when you were 16 and that voice that you connected with then.
Well, I have to go back a little bit further than that.
Okay.
Because I grew up in a house or in a family where on my mother's side, on the matriarch side, there were a lot of, my grandmother, for example, was a tea leaf reader. She was a bit of a psychic. She was a midwife. And my great aunt on that side of the family was an amazing psychic. Let's just put it that way. So woo-woo stuff was never a big deal in our family.
Uh-huh.
You know, I always had something. But that one at 16 was the one that spoke to me really deeply. And I was sitting outside one day on a sunny afternoon in the backyard, just, you know, reading my book, staring up at the sky. We had just moved into a new place and I was a bit unsure of myself. And I put my book down and I was sitting up and I had this voice that spoke, and I call it a voice. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a voice or not a voice, but it was a knowing. And it was a knowing that went deep inside of me. And the knowing said very clearly, and I can hear it even to this day, you were going to live and work overseas. And I kind of went, oh, okay. And okay, yes, it's the 1960s and, you know, late 1960s, early 1970s. And I promise you I wasn't on any other alternative substances whatsoever. Okay. That didn't come till much later in my life. But it was so unbelievably clear and it went right into the soul of my being. That's the only way I can explain it. And I knew without a doubt that it would happen. I just had no idea how. I mean, I grew up in a tiny, tiny little village of about 400 people.
Wow.
And we were definitely not a rich family. We were probably on the poor end. And I had no clue. I had no clue how this was ever going to happen. But it was so significant for me at that moment. Unlike anything that I had experienced prior to that.
And so prior to that, you had experienced other intuitive ways of knowing. And it sounds like that was really encouraged in your family.
It wasn't a big deal. I mean, I would walk into the kitchen and tell my mama, I think so-and-so is going to show up today. It was days before. We didn't have a telephone for a long time. Like I say, we didn't have a lot of luxuries. And so I'd walk into the kitchen and tell mom, so-and-so is going to come today, like auntie so-and-so. And sure enough, and she'd just make extra food.
Wow.
It was not because her mom was a psychic. And my grandmother, like her mother, my Granny McCormick would basically tell me, as I was young, she kept telling me, you're my little gypsy. And I'd say, Granny, what do you mean? And she says, oh, someday you'll find out. So I guess it's been, I believe it's part of the divine plan.
I love it. And so that night when you got this message that you're going to live overseas and travel and do something really unlike what you might have imagined in that small village you were living in, did you immediately accept that? Did you question it in any way?
No questioning. I knew it. I just knew it. That's all I can say. There was no doubt. And in fact, as I proceeded, like I'm 16, right? I'm in grade 11, starting to think about, future, that kind of stuff. My decisions after that were all based with that knowing inside of me. Like I chose education specifically, not because I love teaching, but I chose education specifically because I knew that would get me overseas. And it was interesting because my older sisters were trying to push me into different careers. And I kept saying, no, I'm going this way. And I chose subjects that I knew I could teach, that I knew that was going to get me overseas. And it was, the only thing that I did that was not, I would say, part of this vision was getting married. That was kind of my detour. Yes and no, because that detour got me back into that spot again. My marriage, it was interesting because I was married for almost 7 years. And the last 2 years of the marriage, when I graduated from university, my husband and I went to Greece with a couple of friends. And Greece was the again, it's that voice inside of me. I'm sitting on a beach in Crete and I'm looking towards the south, and inside of my voice, this little voice is saying, Africa's over there. You're going to be there someday. And it was done. My marriage was done right then. I mean, I came back to Canada within 2 years. I left him because not that he was a bad person or anything like that. It was just that I knew that I had to follow this path.
So how did that unfold for you?
Oh, it unfolded in the most miraculous ways. Again, you can call it synchronicities. I don't use the word synchronicities because to me it's a little bit loaded. I prefer to call it a divine plan. I believe that each of us comes into this world with a divine plan. And as part of that divine plan, things show up. And in most cases, when you choose not to follow the divine plan, you get into a lot, you kind of have some challenges, but those challenges are there to bring you back to the divine plan. Mm-hmm. That's why, it's, to me, that's the only way to be, is to follow that divine plan. So, I mean, after I left my husband, there were all kinds of things that happened I followed the crumbs. And within 2-year period, I was on my way to Nigeria as a volunteer, QSO volunteer.
Wow.
And after that, it was like, and it's this trust. It's the trust that you build up, the trust that you're in the right place, you're doing the right thing. I mean, I did have when I first got to Nigeria and I got to my house, I had a bit of a little meltdown. I got into my house and it was, it wasn't exactly clean, and it was okay. I can give you a whole big description, but I don't think you need that. And I remember sitting in the middle of the floor after the headmistress left me and said, we made plans to go shopping shortly after, and I started to cry. I just bawled. And again, that little voice came up inside of me and says, well, you got 2 choices. And I'm going, yeah, go home or stay, right? Anyway, yeah. And I said, well, I'm not going home. And the voice says, well, you chose this. And it was a big you chose this. And I went, yeah, I did. I'm staying.
Wow.
And that led to my, my 30 years of wandering the planet.
That's amazing. So when you arrived in Nigeria, was that the first time that you had really been in a culture that was so amazingly different than what you grew up with?
Nigeria, for me, the 2 years I was in Nigeria, I say that it was the best university I have ever been to.
Yeah.
Because after Nigeria, I could go anywhere and I could deal with anything. But it was an amazing time. I had a fabulous 2 years.
And you were teaching in a school there?
I was teaching in a government school, working and earning a government teacher's salary. Yeah,
Wow.
very,
Amazing.
very basic, very, very basic. You know, um, in those days, Nigeria was going through turmoil, but it was still relatively safe. Whereas today, I wouldn't go back today.
Hmm. So after those 2 years in Nigeria, where did your path lead?
Oh, I a friend of mine joined me from Canada, came to Nigeria, and we backpacked from Nigeria, and through we went from Nigeria to Kenya, from Kenya to Egypt, from Egypt to India, from India to Myanmar, from Myanmar to Thailand, from Thailand to Singapore, to Malaysia, to Burma, to Indonesia, back to Thailand. Yeah, and then at the end of a year, I mean, we were backpacking on, and this is again 100% trust. This is that voice that says, you know, I always knew I'd have enough money. I always knew that we'd find the right place to stay. I always knew that we would find what we needed, and we always did. And at the end of it, one night, my friend decided she needed to go back to Canada, and I went, okay, and I'm down to $200 in my pocket, right? And she says, well, I'll pay for your trip home if you want, if that's what you're doing. I'm not going home. I'm staying. And she says, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. Let's go out for dinner. So as we're walking down one of the main thoroughfares in Bangkok, heading off to an outdoor market, I look up, and what do I see? I see a sign up there that says teacher wanted on the window. I walk
In
in, I
English.
said, wait, we have to go. Yeah, we have to go in and have a look. And I walk in and I say, I'm a qualified teacher. I have certification. I can prove it. I'm looking for a job. He says, can you start tomorrow morning? I said, no, I can't, because I have to take my friend to the airport. He says, okay, can you start the next morning at 7:00? I went, yeah.
Wow.
Okay. From $200, 8 months later, I left Thailand with $6,000 in my pocket.
Wow. And so you were teaching English there?
I was teaching English as a second language illegally. Every 3 months I had to leave the country and go to Malaysia and get my passport restamped, and then come back and forth. And yeah. And then at the end of that too, I discovered international schools. And so then when I left Thailand, I went to the UK to a job fair. And that got me into the international school circuit, where I spent the remainder of my time until I went to Peru.
Wow. That's amazing. What a story. And what a faith walk. That's what the words that come to me are: faith walk. And really leaning in to trusting this voice that is guiding you the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you continue to go inside of yourself and listen to that intuitive flow, how did that shape your life? Like, not only in terms of you being able to keep traveling and living this adventure life that was calling your heart, but internally, how did that change you?
There were a lot of changes that took place. And again, I'll go back a little bit. When I was 9 years old, my older brother died in a car accident, and my mother blamed herself for my brother's death. I mean, he was 16 years old, because they had a big fight and he left home, and shortly after he died, right?
Oh.
And my mother never forgave herself, and she became an alcoholic. So I lived in a really horrible place. And for my teenage years, my 20s and my 30s, I had this anger within me. So even though I was very connected to spirit and I was walking this path and trusting and the rest of it, I still had that heavy weight of anger within me. And it carried on for quite a while. In fact, there's a period I went through that I probably became about, I was probably borderline alcoholic. And then I can remember waking up one morning, and after one particular wild night, and thinking to myself, I can't do this anymore. great spirit or God, that I was talking to God then, or whatever you wish to call it. I need help. I can't do this anymore because I can see where it's going to head. And so the years after that, there were probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, because I'm living in places where there's no AA, there's no help, there's nothing, right? There's just me. I either do it or I don't. And what I did was, I slowly stopped drinking, but then that's my whole social being. From the time I was a teenager to this, and I didn't know how to be any other way. I had to learn a new way of being. I had one of my sisters was very interested in astrology. She gave me some astrology books when I came, in my periodic visits home, and I would pick up books as I came home, and I started to read. And the one book that really triggered me to change how I thought was a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And that book turned me around. But it was a slow process, but it was a process of trust, because I knew that I had that spirit inside, because I had all those years from Nigeria to this point of that flow. And I wanted to get back to that flow. I knew what I had, and that was missing. And which eventually led me to meditation. And in the meditations, I had a very profound meditation where my mom came and talked to me, and I made 100% peace with her. To the point where I actually look very much like my mom. And I came back one time for a family reunion, and my mom's sisters, 3 of my mom's sisters were still alive. And I walked into the hall where my 3 aunties were, and they went, "Oh my God, it's Edna." And if somebody would have said that to me when I was younger, I'd have hit them. And I just smiled and went, "Yeah, I am my mom." And there was this beauty. So it was from that moment that my life changed. And I went back to that bit of trust, and that bit of and that knowing. The knowing has always been there. It's always guided me. But I think I had to go through that dark point to really truly forgive myself for all the anger that I carried all those years, and to forgive my mom, because she didn't do anything wrong. She was only living what she knew. She didn't know how to deal with her her sorrow. And I get it. But it took a while. So that's kind of where things led. And then over the years, again, I'm still living in places where there's no books or whatever. Thank goodness, eventually there was internet and bookstores that would send books to me, and stuff like that. I just followed the path. I just followed where the crumbs led. And to me, that's living. You follow where the crumbs lead. There's no right or wrong. You just follow. And you'll always end up where you're supposed to be.
And so now, what role does this play in your life? You're deeply anchored in this trust and this flow. How does it show up for you now?
In the same way. In the same way. Even, all this chaos that's going on right now, and so many people living in fear, and so much fear being in the community and the rest of it. I can hold my balance. I can hold my groundedness. I can hold my centeredness. That plus, my Qigong practice actually feeds into that as well. I don't react anymore. The reaction, and this has been for many, many years, even before I came back to Canada. When I knew you in Peru and I was leading groups, it was all, things would happen. I would get a phone call from one of my Mr. Fix-Its in Peru and saying, "Well, we can't do this, Carolynne. What are we going to do?" And I'd say, "Okay, never mind. I'll talk to you when I get back." And it worked. It always worked. So, it's that trust. It's that I don't know. And it's a calm. It's a centeredness. I had somebody hit my car and run, like hit and run, destroyed one half of my car. And I let out some wonderful choice words for about 4 seconds. I got out of my car, looked around, took some pictures. Somebody stopped. And, we decided that, and this person looked at me and says, "You're not angry." And I said, "Well, I was, but it's gone. Within 5 minutes, it's gone. You can't anger doesn't solve anything. What can you do now? What can you do now?" Well, you look to see if you can drive the car, and the police station was 2 blocks away, drove it to the police station, had them check it out, and carried on. Yes, it's an inconvenience, but it's not the end of the world. So that's where it fits in my life, is that I can handle the ups and downs.
I love it. So you're talking about Peru, and I would love to move our conversation in that direction.
Okay.
When we first connected in the Sacred Valley, we were both exploring the traditions of shamanic healing in Peru. And I'd just love to hear more about that. How did you initially connect with shamanic healing?
Before I went to Peru, I was living in Ethiopia. And I was a little bit, I knew that I had to change, but I wasn't ready yet. Ethiopia has always been the dream country. From the time I was 12 or 13, I always wanted to go to Ethiopia. That's that soul. I believe that's part of the soul plan. And when I got to Ethiopia, I was like, okay, I'm like a kid in a candy shop, because I'm where I wanted to be. And I'm not surprised that that's where my teaching career ended. So like I said, I relied a lot on books, and I got interested in, and that was the first time where I had reliable internet. And so I explored online shamanic. I was pulled to this shamanic teachings through books, through what I read. I was looking for courses. I was, looking at all the different possibilities, and none of them seemed to draw me or pull me. And again, I go back to that trust, and I go back to that divine plan where on my birthday, and I can't remember which birthday it was, 40 something anyway, I went into school, and there was an email from a stranger. And normally I would not have opened the email, but something told me I needed to. I had bought a book by a certain author, and this was a friend of his inviting me to Brazil to do ayahuasca.
Wow.
Okay. And I didn't even know what it was. Okay. And I have never taken, and up to that point, I had never taken, I didn't even smoke marijuana. Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. And for some reason, I did a little bit of research. I did a little bit of checking, and it just so happened that morning in school, I had the first block free. I phoned my travel agent. I said, "Can I get from here to here and back again between these dates?" And she said, "No." She said, "I think you'll need a day. Either, I can't remember if it was at the beginning or at the end, whatever. And you need a Brazilian visa, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Okay, can we do all that?" She said, "Yeah, we can do all that." I said, "How much time do I need?" She says, "We can start right away." "Okay, fine." I said, "Book it." I went into my director's office, and I said, I need to, it happened to be over one of our holidays. I said, "I need extra days over our holidays." I said, "I don't care if you pay me or you don't pay me, but I'm taking them." And he looked at me and he says, "Okay, this is serious." And so off I went. I went to Brazil, and I had my first ayahuasca journeys, and I went back two more times. I met at that particular one of the journeys I was on, I met Pablo Amaringo.
Wow, amazing.
And I did a ceremony for I can't remember. It was a week of ceremonies with Pablo Amaringo. So I blessings to the maestro. And then I got this pull that I needed to go to Peru, and I had no clue. I had a vision. During one of my ayahuasca ceremonies, I had a vision and it was when I was with Pablo. I asked the spirit, what do I do next? Because I was uncertain, what do I do next? And I saw this big closet full of suitcases, and I went, okay, so where am I going? Mm-hmm. And then it showed me, I was in a plane, and below it, I could see a city. And in neon lights, Vegas style, I saw Cusco.
Huh.
And then I said, okay, so what do I do in Cusco? And then it showed me, it said, well, you have to go to Machu Picchu. And I said, what am I supposed to do in Machu Picchu? And it showed me one particular rock. And I had my arms around that rock, and it said, that's what you have to go find. So long and short of it was I left my teaching career of 20 some years, just walked away. Again, this is pure 100% trust. I was looking for a place to stay, and I had a Lonely Planet book, and I'd open that Lonely Planet book, and it would say, and you'll laugh at this one because it would say Casa de la Gringa. I'd close it and go, nah, that just sounds too, way out for me, blah, blah, blah. And I'd leave it, and the next time I would just open the book, and it would come back to that very same page. And finally it was like, well, contact this lady. So, that's kind of how I ended up. I ended up, telling Leslie Myberg, who owns Casa La Gringa. And she connected me with, said, go and see this particular person, Cucho, in Machu Picchu. And I went. I told him my story, and he looks at me and he says, well, you didn't come here for the sanctuary, which is the ruins, what everybody knows as Machu Picchu.
Right.
He says, do you see that mountain way up there? That's Machu Picchu. He says, that's where you have to go. And I'm thinking, are you joking? And he says, can you climb up there? And I'm thinking, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And I said, well, yes, slowly, slow. He says, in his answer, because I asked him if I was looking for a maestro, and I asked him if he would, help me. And he says, first we have to go up and talk to your mountain, because that's the rock that called you. Mm-hmm. And then we will decide. And as a result of that, I spent 5 years in the Andes, leading spiritual tours, but also working with Maestro Cucho on his spiritual tours too. Spending a lot of time with him, he, going to places that are way off the beaten track. And in the end, I found a peace. All I can say is I found a peacefulness. And it was interesting because when I asked him if he could be my maestro, his answer to me when we did the ceremony and when he got his answer was, I can't teach you anything because you are the same level as I am. So we are going to walk together. And that's what we did. We just walked together. And then eventually I did go into the Amazon where, I worked with various shamans and, ayahuascados in the Amazon as well, following that path to the point where one night in ceremony, I asked the plant, I feel like I've come to the end. And she says, yeah, she's like, I got no more pictures for you. Go off, go live. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of my story of Peru. I loved Peru. I loved sharing everything about Peru when I did the tours, when I led the groups. I did that for 4 years. I led various groups. What a blessing.
It's an amazing experience to bring people to experience this land and this culture, mm-hmm. especially people from North America who have such a different way of life. I mean, we have amazingly beautiful land in North America for sure, but these ancient cultures and these mm-hmm. deep connections with the land in a spiritual ways. Mm-hmm. I mean, that has certainly changed my life over the last 15 years and mm-hmm. keeps calling me back. And we've been leading groups there since 2014 now. And mm-hmm. I just love watching the amazement as people drop that busy mind thing and like plug in for the first time, like, whoa, mm-hmm. this is not like what I'm used to. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
And so now you're working with Qigong, which on the surface sounds quite different from Andean shamanism or plant medicine work. How did you come to the practice of Qigong?
Well, the voice again basically told me that I had to come back to Canada, and I fought it for 2 years in Peru until one day, and actually it was Cucho who, I had been thinking about it, and I got coming home quite a bit, and Cucho basically said, I can't have a foot in both worlds anymore. I had to make a choice, and I already knew what the choice was, even though I was fighting it. So you can fight it, but it's going to happen. So I came back to Canada in 2009 in June. And I come from a family where I have 3 older sisters who are 20 plus years older than me.
Wow.
Okay. So they're more like I tell everybody I had four mothers. Really and truly, I had four mothers. Um, and one of my sisters I was really, really close to. And when I came back to Canada in October, she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And so then I knew why I came home. I knew why I needed to be here. And she asked me if I would stay with her while she, went through this journey. And I did. Um, for 2 years, I was her primary caregiver along with my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law married her when I was 1 year old. So, I mean, that's my
Oh,
father. Okay. So,
yeah.
anyway, after my sister passed, I always, through my times in Peru, through my meditations, like I spent so much time sitting in Machu Picchu and various part of and other sites within Peru, just sitting and just being and letting insights, letting wisdom come into me. And I always believed that things did not need to be difficult, did not need to be complicated. And I kept finding things that were far too complicated. And I kept going, there's got to be, and I kept saying to Spirit, there's got to be an easier way. There's got to be an easier way. So anyway, I went to BC for a year and hung out in the Kootenays and, lived in the bush and realized, okay, I'm not a bush person. I need people. I love it, but yeah, for only for short periods of time. When I came back, I was with my brother-in-law, and this little voice kept talking to me. And this time, this voice was just as loud as it was when I was 16, and it kept saying Qigong, 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 Qigong. And I lived in Asia, okay? I lived in Thailand. I know what Qigong is. And I'm going, yeah. I'll say, where can I find Qigong in Edmonton? And I did what everybody else does, did the internet search, looked around, couldn't find anything. Just let it go, okay? But the voice never went away. It was insistent. That's the best word I can say. It was insistent. And so one day I was having dinner with a friend of mine, and I mentioned this to her, and we've been friends since, in the 70s. And she says, oh, you got to talk to blah, blah, blah. And I went, okay, so how do I find this person? She said, well, I don't know. Yeah, I knew him in the 80s, but I don't know if he's still doing stuff or not or whatever. I went, okay, let it be. A week later, I had coffee with another friend and mentioned the same thing to him. And he says, oh, Dr. Ong. Dr. Ong's doing classes next week. He's got a workshop. Phone.
Mm.
I phoned. I was in the workshop.
I love it.
And Dr. Ong is a world-renowned Grand Master of Qigong. He's also a medical practitioner. He's also a medical doctor. He's a homeopathic doctor. He's an acupuncturist. He's many faceted, and he is a very traditional Qigong master. And a traditional Qigong master is a master who spoon feeds you, and you have to master each step before you go forward, all right? So I did a couple of levels with Dr. Ong, and then I was given an invitation to an introduction to a form of Qigong called Spring Forest Qigong. And I thought, well, I'm going to go find out what it's about. Within 15 minutes of being in this presentation, I knew this was for me. Because Spring Forest Qigong, the way that Master Chuni Lin has developed it, it is simple, it's easy, it's effective, and it's efficient, fast. Okay? Anybody can feel the benefits of his form of Qigong. You can start noticing things in your life. If you did it every day for 5 days, you would already start to notice things changing.
Wow.
Most people can learn the Qigong come to my first class. It might take a little bit more, but you can learn the fundamentals of it. Master Lin doesn't spoon feed. He gives you the whole darn thing, and he gives it by layers, because I'm a level 3 practitioner out of 5 levels. I still have 2 more levels to go. This virus thing is going to slow me down just a little bit, because I was due to do level 4, my level 4 mastery this year. I've been training for it for a whole year, and I don't know if I'm going to get to go to Minnesota or not. But anyway, it's just beautiful. It's Qigong is it's not an exercise. It's not a meditation. It's an ancient Chinese healing modality where the premise is everybody is a healer. You're a healer. I'm a healer. Everybody listening to this is a healer. We haven't, Western medicine takes that away from us, but we are all healers. Our body knows what to do without us telling it what to do. I don't tell my heart to beat. I don't tell my kidneys to function. Everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. And so what Qigong is really, it's a practice. So it's not even an exercise, because what you're going to get is not strong muscles, or you're not going to tone your body. But what you are going to do is you are going to rebalance and reharmonize all of your energy lines within your body. You have 12 major energy lines, and you're realigning your energy to get rid of blockages, because blockages cause illness. Mm-hmm. And you know, whatever the illness might be, there's always a root to it. What Qigong does is it goes to the root of the problem, as opposed to deal with symptoms.
And are these 12 different energy lines the same as the meridians from acupuncture?
Acupuncture comes from Qigong.
Okay.
Acupuncture comes from Qigong, acupressure comes from Qigong, Tai Chi comes from Qigong, and many martial arts from Qigong. Qigong is the grandmother. It's the basis of many, many, many traditional Chinese practices.
I love it.
So it's, you know, we're working with the Qi, we're working with universal energy, and we're working with it. It's not just your body. We're working with the universal energy, because everything is energy. Everything, you know, the table, the chair, the window, everything is energy. And so we're bringing in all of that energy into our body. This energy is not like when you breathe, and if you're breathing in what we call energy breathing, you're not just breathing in oxygen. You are breathing in divine intelligence. You are breathing in divine wisdom. That's how your body functions. It's connected to that divine, because when your breathing stops, your body stops. So there's nothing, you know, that to me is the huge premise. I work right now. I work with a lot of seniors. I work with cancer patients in a special facility. I have seen some really wonderful, wonderful things happen in those. It's absolutely fabulous for both those groups, but I also have private groups where there's a mixed bag of, I've had kids, I have had teenagers come to my Qigong classes, you know, so I've been doing Qigong basically with people from say 14 years old up to 95 years old. The wonderful thing for seniors is it helps with their stability and their balance. And it's a holistic practice where you are realigning and rebalancing your physical, your mental, your emotional, and your spiritual being. So it's so much more like, you know, people says, oh, I want to do the exercise. Well, it's not just the exercise. It's a whole way of doing things. And the wonderful thing about Spring Forest Qigong is it's portable and it's flexible. It can be done anywhere. I was standing last Saturday morning at the farmer's market here in Edmonton, outside with everybody else. And as I'm standing and waiting and the sun's shining on me at 7 o'clock in the morning, it was beautiful. I'm doing Qigong. And nobody knows I'm doing Qigong. You know, what a better way to stand in line. And you're spreading that Qi to everybody else. You know, people are smiling. They look at you and they smile and they don't know what I'm doing. I just think to me, it's just fabulous. So that's that in a nutshell. That's really what Qigong is, and what Spring Forest Qigong, because I practice the form called Spring Forest Qigong. There are thousands of different Qigong practitioners out there, and each one will give it their own special flavor, but none of them do I know have it so simple, so easy. Master Lin has also added the element, because within the five element theory, which is the fundamental basis of all traditional Chinese medicine, there's a part of emotions, and he's added emotions into the Qigong practice and how to deal with those emotions. Like right now, you know, helping people deal with fear just through acupuncture points or acupressure points, as well as through very simple movements.
That's awesome. It sounds like something that a lot of people probably would want to explore right about now, when life is very stressful and we don't have the option of getting out into the world and doing more complicated things to move that energy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm online.
Actually, I referred somebody to you yesterday.
Awesome. Thank you.
My pleasure. I'm curious, are you finding that there are connections between the path of shamanism that you were exploring in Peru and the practice of Qigong?
Absolutely. Um, Qigong comes from the philosophy of Taoism. Taoism is the unity of all. Shamanism is the unity of all. And it's not an ism. It's not a religion. It's not well, it's not a religion. It's a philosophy, and it's a way of life. And to me, shamanism was a way of life, and it still is a way of life, because I'm also connected up here in the north with some indigenous people in my community. So we did have a ceremony last week where I had my pipe and I had my drum. So it's still there. It's still there because it's the same. We're dealing with life. We're dealing with the oneness of all. We cannot separate. This idea of putting everything in its little box and separation, this is what's caused our problems in the world. And we have to, if we can find a way individually, one by one. I can't do it for you. You can't do it for me. I can't do it for anybody else. I can act as a guide. I can point in the direction, but that person has to make the steps to embrace that oneness. Embrace everything. Embrace what is. Right now, it's not a great time. And my heart really, really goes out to all those people that are struggling, because there are so many people struggling out there. I feel it in my heart. I feel for them. But at the same time, if we can accept what is, this is the situation we're in. So what can I do now? So keeping your focus, again, it's in the moment. The shamans know how to stay in the moment. Qigong masters know how to stay in the moment. And bringing yourself back to that inner presence. And the practice of Qigong really does help you to bring yourself back into that present moment and that stillness.
Would you lead us in a simple Qigong practice?
I sure can.
Oh, I'm excited.
Okay, so we can do Qigong standing, sitting, or lying down. So today we're just going to sit. So I'm just going to move back a little bit so that you can see my hands. So this is one practice. So what I want you to do is just drop your shoulders. Okay, just relax. Let your shoulders drop. I want you to very slowly take a deep breath in through your nose and let it out through your mouth. One more. One more. And now I'd like you to close your eyes. Well, you're going to have to keep your eyes open because you have to watch my hands. But rest your tongue gently on the roof of your mouth. And you're going to breathe in and out through your nose. And the reason we breathe in and out through our nose is because we want to keep that universal chi inside of our body. We don't want to release it. So when we breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, we're just letting go of some of that stale, stagnant energy that might be hanging around, okay? So you're going to bring your palms of your hands in front of you. And if you notice, right, if you put your hands like this, can you feel the energy right between your palms of your hands? Some people can, some people can't. And if you can't, that's not a big deal. Just say to yourself, I can feel energy right in the palms of my hands. So what we are going to do is you're going to breathe in and your hands are going to go out. And as we breathe out, our hands are going to come together. So your hands are following your breath. You're not waving, you're not playing an orchestra. You're not being a conductor, right? All right, so bring your hands right here into the ball and breathe in. If you look at me, you breathe in and breathe out. And you're breathing in without tightening your shoulders, without tightening your chest. It's a breath a little bit stronger than normal. And as you push in, feel that chi. You're pushing, pushing, pushing on a ball. Your hands don't touch. Breathing in. Breathing out. Now, if you close your eyes, you're going to take 3 or 4 breaths like this. Just feel that energy. Bring your focus, your full attention into the center of your hands, into that ball of chi. Breathing in. Breathing out. In. Out. In. And out. Then bring your hands back to breathe out with your hands in your center. Rub the palms of your hands together. And you're just going to massage your face a little bit. This just helps to anchor the chi. So you're going, your fingertips, your index finger goes up the sides of your nose. Your palms go right over your eyes and come down around your cheeks. That's the way to anchor the chi. So it's not like it's kind of like washing your face, but it's like making a heart on your face. There, how you feel?
I feel much better.
That's as simple as it gets. So you can do this anywhere, even without the hand movement. And that's why I can stand in a lineup into a farmer's market. And I just go into energy breathing. So anytime you're overstressed, anytime you feel stressed out, anytime you don't know what to do, anytime you start going into your mental busyness, stop. Take 3 or 4 breaths. This will bring you back to the present. This is the moment where you come back to present.
That's such an important practice.
Breathing is the foundation of Qigong. Everything is
so
about
important
breathing.
Right now, especially as there's so many things that, regardless of where we are in connection with this pandemic, whether we're still working and we still have an income, or everything is shut down and we're uncertain, like there's just so much uncertainty, and it's easy to get swept away in that, like 20 times a day. Mm-hmm. So a simple practice like this is so easy because you can literally do it at your desk, in a meeting, on Zoom, or anywhere.
You can even do it when you're facing somebody who's angry. And you know what? They'll start calming down because it ripples out. It ripples out. You're breathing in universal chi. Universal chi energy doesn't stay still. It moves. It has to move. And if it gets stuck in your body, you're going to get sick. That's the long and short of it.
Yeah. So as we were chatting recently, I was inspired by something that you said. You said, you can't get life wrong. And as we've been saying, life is so filled with uncertainty, and especially as we begin to connect with our intuition, it's easy to feel pulled in so many different directions. And like, do we follow what our friends and family say, or what society expects? Or do we listen to that little voice inside of ourselves? And when faced with uncertainty, it's hard to really take in this idea that you can't get life wrong, because it seems like there's so many decisions to make right now. What words of wisdom can you offer our listeners as they contemplate this for themselves?
I'm going with Eckhart Tolle and many of the other masters, and basically say that when you can be comfortable with what is, when you can look at all the hell that's going on around you, all the chaos that's going around you, and look at it for what it is. Look at it and say to yourself, what can I do? What's in my control? And what isn't in my control? If it's not in your control, let it go. Don't waste energy on it, because that energy will get stuck in your body. That energy will manifest someplace in your body as a symptom. That's what we say in Qigong, where we're looking at the root of the problem. We're going into the root. In Qigong, as well as modern science, 90% of all illness comes from stress. Stress comes from thinking. Emotions come from thinking. You don't know this is anger until you give it the label anger. If you don't give it the label, if you don't give it the judgment, if you don't put it in a little box, it's not there. It's just a sensation. So I don't I don't very often, I'll look at things happening to me. I don't label, this is fear, this is anger. I feel discomfort, and I recognize the discomfort. I do my Qigong breathing, and I allow that discomfort to dissipate by itself, and it will. So when I say you can't, there's no right and wrong. There is no right and wrong. For example, it's subject. This might be right for you. This might be, but it might be wrong for somebody else. This might be right for this moment, but not there. How many times in your life, as we've gotten older, how many times have, way back when you said, oh, I'll never do that, and all of a sudden you're doing it? Right? So it's the same with good and bad. It's that yin and yang. The yin and yang needs to have harmony. It needs to have balance in the yin and the yang. We live in a world of polarity, but we don't have to swing like a pendulum. Yes, you can swing. I swing. Yes, I'm human, right? I can go up, but I only go up like this and back here, and up like this and then back here. Bringing yourself always back to the centeredness. And so I truly, firmly believe, and I stated it earlier, that we all have a divine plan. You can call it whatever names you want. It's just a label. Labels don't mean a darn thing in my world. You can call things whatever you want to call them. But we all came with this divine plan. And none of us would have manifested COVID-19. None of us would have. So when we say, oh, I can manifest this, I can manifest that. Yeah, you can manifest little things. But on the whole, you can't manifest so much in your life. You would not have manifested your car accident. I would have not manifested getting mugged in an alley in Lesotho. I would have not manifested any of those things, but yet they happened. Why do they happen? Because they're part of your plan. I firmly believe in that. So that's why I say that, you can't mess up life. You can go on little detours, and messing up means that it just means that we don't like what is happening. And if you can get to the point where you love what is, there's no right or wrong. It just is. It's a state of ism.
I like to say that I don't like to be fighting with reality. I don't like to be in conflict with reality. And it's not always easy, but it seems to be like really the only goal is to see what's happening and to find a way to accepting it as quickly as possible, and then being able to make decisions from a clear place in response, not in reaction.
Yeah. And when we're in reactive mode, we don't think clearly.
Yeah.
So even if you have to stop and just take some time, like this, to me, with this isolation period, for many people, it's absolute total hell.
Yeah.
But for others, it's a wake up call, and they're making realizations, and they're going in. And for some people, well, they're just not going to get it, and that's okay too. We're all different. It's okay. It's okay, guys. Be who you are. Just be who you are. Love every bit of where you are at the moment. And it's okay to be sad, and it's okay to be angry, and don't stuff those feelings in. Let those feelings come out, express them, but don't let it go on long. Like that car, when the car hit me. Okay, so I let out, air was blue in my car for, a few minutes. But then you take some deep breaths and you just allow it to pass. It's gone. I'm not holding it inside of me. I held in anger in my body way too long, far too long. I will never do that again.
Yeah. And what I'm really appreciating about practices like what you just shared with us today is that it's a way to give space to that feeling, and then to allow it to settle, so that we can get back to that place of choosing to respond from our intelligence and not from fear or trauma or whatever else. Like practices like this, and meditation and yoga and breath work and many other things are so good, because we all get in that space where we can't think straight and we're triggered and stirred up. And then to have things as a toolkit to rely on that then give us a pathway back to our center. Like that seems more important than ever right now.
Yeah. And Qigong is considered a moving meditation. And we do a lot of meditation, but what you are doing is sometimes with meditation, some meditation practices, and this is not a judgment, this is not going good or bad. You know, they ask you to, you're flowing out of your body. What Qigong is, you stay planted in your body because you're here. So what Qigong does, it's always bringing you back into your centeredness. So as long as you're navigating on this planet, stay in that centeredness, stay in that groundness. And from that, you get clarity. You know what to do. And even doing nothing is knowing what to do. And you can make wise decisions. And if you make one decision, it doesn't work out, make another one. What's the big deal? It's just a decision. It's no big deal. You can we make 1,000 decisions in one day. And we don't get fussed about 99% of them. We get fussed about this one that keeps going around in our head. Let it go. It's just a decision. Oh, I screwed up. Okay, I laugh at myself so much. And inside I'm going, oh, you did it again. Oh, okay. Not a big
take
deal.
ourselves less seriously.
Totally.
Yeah. Nah, I love it. Carolynne, you are a blessing in my life, and you are a blessing in this world. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to share this conversation.
Oh, and you are such a joy in my life, and you've brought so much love and heartfelt, beautiful energy and music to my life. And I'm so blessed for that day in Bolivia, where under very not the greatest circumstances our paths crossed, but I feel so honored that I was there at that moment to be with you.
I do
but
too.
I thank you so much for having me here today, and much love to you and to Helen.
Thank you so much. And for those who would like to find out more about Carolynne's work in Qigong, you will be able to access her website at the end of this video. Thank you so much, and I wish you all endless blessings.